The morning sun stretched golden light across the rolling hills as Michael pulled into the driveway of his ranch. To him, this place wasn't just land, it was a legacy. His grandfather had built it from nothing, and every wooden beam carried the weight of memory. But as he stepped out of his truck, he noticed something strange: an unfamiliar SUV parked near his gate, its engine still running. Two people stood beside it, dressed in sharp business attire, holding clipboards. Their posture screamed authority, but something about their presence felt wrong. Michael had been away for months, traveling for work, and now the first sight that greeted him was confrontation. Before he could ask a question, a woman in her late 50s with perfectly styled hair and a bright blazer marched toward him. Her expression was sharp, her tone sharper. "You can't just come back here and park like this," she barked, pointing at his own driveway as if it belonged to her. Michael raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry. Who exactly are you?" The woman didn't blink. "I'm the president of this community's HOA. You've violated multiple codes. And unless you pay the outstanding fines, we'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement." Neighbors peeked from porches. Some whispered, others folded their arms, waiting to see how this stranger would handle Karen, the nickname many had given her behind closed doors. But what they didn't know was that Michael wasn't just a ranch owner. He wasn't even just a man defending his home. Michael had a position that went far beyond their understanding, and today, they were about to find out. The words "call the cops" echoed through the neighborhood as Karen pulled out her phone dramatically, showing Michael she wasn't bluffing. The two men in suits, her so-called compliance officers, nodded in agreement, crossing their arms as though their presence alone made them untouchable. Michael leaned against his truck, calm but firm. His silence unsettled them more than any angry outburst could have. "This ranch has been in my family for decades," he finally said, his voice steady. "There's no HOA jurisdiction here." Karen scoffed, flipping through her clipboard papers. "Everything within 5 miles of the new development falls under our association. That includes this property. You're overdue on your fees, and you violated fencing codes, livestock restrictions, and even driveway regulations. You either comply, or the authorities will remove you." Whispers spread among neighbors now gathered near the road. Some looked sympathetic, others amused. Everyone knew Karen loved wielding her power, but this time felt different. She was up against someone who didn't seem rattled in the slightest. Michael studied the crowd, then turned back to her. "Call whoever you want," he said. "But when they arrive, you might regret inviting them." Karen smirked, mistaking his confidence for arrogance. She dialed with gusto, already painting herself as the righteous hero protecting the neighborhood. But beneath Michael's calm exterior, a storm of truth was building, one that would shake this HOA to its very core. Within minutes, flashing lights painted the ranch's driveway. A squad car pulled up, and 2 uniformed officers stepped out. Karen straightened her blazer, waved her clipboard in the air, and hurried toward them. "Thank goodness you're here. This man is trespassing, violating multiple HOA codes, and refusing to cooperate. You need to arrest him immediately." The officers exchanged confused looks. "Trespassing? On his own property?" one asked cautiously. Karen huffed. "This property is under HOA authority now. He owes thousands in fines. He's refusing to comply." The officers turned toward Michael, expecting some heated denial. But instead, he reached calmly into his jacket. Neighbors gasped, expecting drama. What came out, however, silenced the entire street. A polished leather wallet flipping open, revealing an official government badge. The officer's posture shifted instantly. Respect replaced hesitation. One officer nodded firmly. "Sir," he said with authority, "we didn't realize it was you." Karen froze. Her smirk vanished. The neighbors leaned forward in disbelief. Michael's voice was low but powerful as he finally revealed a piece of his truth. "You should know," he said, locking eyes with her, "I don't just own this ranch. I oversee every HOA in America. And right now, I'm watching yours." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Karen's face drained of color, her once proud stance faltering. "Every HOA?" she stammered. The two compliance officers behind her suddenly looked less confident, shifting uncomfortably as whispers rippled through the crowd of neighbors. Michael took a step forward, badge glinting in the daylight. "I'm not just a rancher, and I'm not under your control. My office oversees housing associations nationwide. That means I know every loophole, every code, and every abuse of power you've been pulling on these people." Karen tried to recover her composure. This is outrageous. You can't just show up and..." Michael cut her off with calm precision. "You called the police on me. On my own property. You humiliated yourself in front of your neighbors. And now, they've all seen the truth. You don't enforce power here. You abuse it." The neighbors, emboldened by his words, nodded and whispered among themselves. For years, Karen's iron grip had silenced their complaints. But today, her authority cracked like glass. Karen clutched her clipboard tighter, but her voice trembled. "I was only trying to keep the community in order." Michael didn't flinch. "Order isn't built on fear. It's built on fairness. And it looks like your time of ruling through intimidation has come to an end." The crowd erupted in murmurs of approval. Karen's reign was slipping through her fingers. And the man she thought she could bully had just exposed the truth that would change everything. The afternoon sun hung high, casting long shadows as the neighbors lingered, hungry for answers. Karen's clipboard trembled in her hands, the symbol of her power reduced to little more than paper. The two so-called compliance officers, sensing the shift, began edging away, unsure whether to stand beside her or quietly disappear. Michael remained calm, his badge tucked away now, his voice carrying the weight of quiet authority. "For years," he said, looking not just at Karen but at the entire crowd, "I've heard complaints from neighborhoods just like this. People pushed into silence, fined unfairly, and told they had no choice. But here's the truth: you always have a choice. And today, you've seen that her rules aren't law, they're intimidation." The neighbors murmured in agreement, some nodding, others exchanging looks that carried years of bottled frustration. A middle-aged man in a baseball cap finally spoke up. "She fined me $200 last month for having a garden shed that was too visible. But it was behind my fence. I didn't say anything because I was afraid of more fines." Another neighbor, a young mother holding her toddler, added, "She threatened to have my swing set removed. Said it didn't match the community standards. I almost cried that day." Karen tried to interrupt, her voice shrill now. Those were valid violations. Without rules, this place would fall apart. But her words fell flat. Michael's steady presence overshadowed her panic. He turned to the crowd again. "Rules aren't the problem. Abuse of them is. HOA guidelines exist to protect communities, not to punish families. And Karen here crossed that line." The neighbors clapped softly at first, then louder. Karen's face burned red, but her power was slipping through her fingers faster than she could hold it. For the first time in years, the community realized they weren't trapped under her thumb anymore. The tide had turned. Evening light painted the sky in shades of orange as Michael stood at the center of the crowd. The police officers, now leaning against their car, made no move to intervene. They were simply witnesses to something bigger than a petty HOA squabble. It was the unmasking of a truth no one expected. Karen, desperate, tried one final tactic. "You think you're special because you flashed some badge? You're just making this up to scare us. Nobody oversees every HOA in America. That's ridiculous." Michael's gaze didn't waver. Slowly, he pulled a folder from his truck. Inside were documents stamped with federal seals, directives, and letters. He held them high so everyone could see. "These are official directives," he explained. "My office is responsible for auditing HOA practices, ensuring fairness, and investigating misconduct. Every HOA submits records to my department, including yours." Gasps spread through the crowd. Karen's knees seemed to buckle slightly as realization hit her: he wasn't bluffing. Her violations, her abuses, her countless unjust fines. All of it was documented, ready to be reviewed. A neighbor, an elderly woman with trembling hands, stepped forward. "Does that mean All the money she's taken from us, all the threats, can something be done? Michael gave a small nod. Yes. Restitution, investigations, and accountability. That's why I came back. This wasn't just about my ranch. It was about every one of you who has been treated unfairly. The crowd erupted in relief. People hugged, some even wiping tears from their eyes. For years, they had felt powerless, trapped by paperwork and fear. But tonight, freedom felt possible. Karen dropped her clipboard. It hit the ground with a hollow thud, a sound that felt like the final crack of her empire shattering. Night began to settle, stars glimmering above the ranch as neighbors lingered, unwilling to leave this moment of victory. Karen stood pale and silent, her voice stolen by the reality she could no longer deny. The two compliance officers had already slipped into their SUV, driving away without a word. Michael stood tall, addressing the community one last time. You all deserved better than fear. HOAs are meant to build trust and safety, not strip it away. I came here today as a homeowner, but I leave as a witness to your courage. You spoke up when you were pushed down. That's how change begins. The police officer stepped forward. Mr. Roberts, he said respectfully, do you want us to file a report tonight? Michael shook his head. No. This community doesn't need another headline. What they need is a chance to rebuild. Karen's role here is over. The rest is in my office's hands. The neighbors applauded, louder than ever before. Karen, defeated, shuffled away toward her house, the weight of her downfall heavy on her shoulders. As the crowd began dispersing, a young boy tugged on his father's sleeve and whispered, "Dad, he's like a hero." Michael smiled faintly as he overheard. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man doing what was right. He climbed into his truck, the ranch stretching peacefully behind him. For the first time in years, the community felt free, and as his headlights lit the dark road ahead, one truth rang louder than any applause: sometimes the biggest battles are won not with power, but with calm courage and truth, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.